The signal wasn't meant for Earth. Not exactly. It was a desperate call, fired into the void by a dying species on a forgotten world, compressed data wrapped in static, drifting through systems too ancient to be charted anymore. A simple message, repeated in every known galactic language. Please help us. We are being exterminated. That call pulsed out like a cry of pain across the black silence. Planets ignored it. Empires shrugged. The galaxy moved on. And then, by the unlikeliest twist of fate or cruelty of the universe, it reached Earth. At first, no one noticed. It had slipped through the defenses of some backwater radio telescope in Siberia, an old listening station left on autopilot since before the UN collapsed. The signal had bounced through its servers for nearly 6 hours before a sleepy intern in an underground data center flagged the anomaly. 2 days later, the world was different. Earth, now united under the Human Directorate, didn't ignore the message. Not because of compassion, not entirely. Humanity had always been complicated like that. We had clawed our way back from climate collapse, civil wars, and a near-extinction event called the Black Winter. We didn't do pity well. But what we did understand was this. If someone, or something, was out there wiping out civilizations, it wouldn't stop with the ones begging for help. So the Directorate pulled together its fleets, scraped weapons from black sites never meant to see daylight, activated protocols buried under a dozen emergency contingencies. For the first time in almost 200 years, all 7 Earth orbital dockyards went red. The space around Earth lit up like it was prepping for a world war. But this time, it was the stars we were aiming at. Admiral Cale Morrow stood at the helm of the Vengeance, the flagship of Earth's newest battle fleet, codenamed Firefall. His face was hard, angular, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much war and not enough peace. He had lost a daughter in the riots of New Mumbai, and a son during the cyber insurrection in the lunar colonies. He didn't believe in diplomacy anymore. Not when there were monsters out there who slaughtered civilians like pests. He read the signal again, standing alone in the bridge as the stars stretched across the viewport. The translation was rough, but the message was unmistakable. The species who sent the call, they weren't even human. They looked like walking crystals, with bioluminescent veins and voices that echoed like chimes in the wind. A race called the Talon. Their plea described ships blacker than space itself, weapons that didn't fire beams but bent gravity to tear cities apart. A force called simply the Silence, not pirates, not invaders, eradicators. Kyle tightened his fists. His crew watched him in silence. The time for speeches had passed. "We answer," he said, voice quiet but final. "And we answer with fire." 4 days later, the Firefall fleet entered slipspace. Humanity, fractured, angry, and battle-scarred, was going to war for a species they had never met. Not for honor, not for glory, but because someone, somewhere, had called for help. And humanity didn't ignore cries for help. Not anymore. The jump through slipspace wasn't smooth. It never was. Even after decades of research and stabilizers, humanity's leap technology still felt like getting punched through the soul. Bones vibrated. Teeth ached. Some people swore they saw ghosts in that frozen stretch of folded time. Admiral Cale Morrow didn't flinch. He'd made more jumps than anyone else in the fleet. But the new crew behind him looked shaken. They always did on their first burn through. The Vengeance and the rest of Firefall fleet dropped back into real space on the edge of the Talon system. What they saw first was ash. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers, twisted hulls, shattered satellites, and what looked like the burned bones of a space station. No active defenses, no warning beacons, just silence. Irony didn't escape anyone. Kyle stared at the screen in front of him. "Full scan," he ordered. "I want life signs. Anything still moving?" The AI system, Argent, flickered to life on the central console. Its voice was calm, measured, designed to counter the chaos of war. "Processing scans now. Warning. Multiple gravitational anomalies detected. Origin? Unknown." The fleet's smaller recon vessels shot ahead. Drones poured into the dark, their cameras feeding raw footage to the bridge. What they found turned stomachs and tightened jaws. The Talon were there. Some of them. Or what was left of them. Their crystal bodies floated frozen in the void, shattered, scorched, twisted into horrific forms that no natural force could have caused. Whole cities on their homeworld had been flattened, like someone had taken a cosmic mallet to them. And beneath the cities, where deep caverns once pulsed with Talon energy cores, were craters. Gaping wounds still glowing with residual heat. Kyle looked away from the feed. "Get me survivors. Now!" They found a few, buried beneath the rubble of a collapsed arcology. A handful had survived in a collapsed underground vault, one with sealed pressure, dim light, and barely any oxygen left. Human Marines broke through in exosuits, dragging the survivors into med pods without knowing if they were even compatible. One of them, taller than the rest, its body cracked but still glowing faintly, looked directly at Kyle through the monitor. Its voice came through after translation, soft like wind through broken glass. "You answered?" Kyle nodded once. "We did." The Talon blinked, slow and uncertain. "No one ever has before." And then it told him what had really happened. The Silents weren't just killers. They were collectors. They came not for conquest, but for cleansing. They targeted civilizations that had reached a certain level of energy output, a signature detectable across the stars. Once detected, the silence descended. No negotiations, no messages, just destruction. One by one, they were wiping the galaxy clean of anything that dared rise too high. "They don't believe in evolution," the Talon said. "Only in cycles. They erase progress so the galaxy can start again." Kyle's blood ran cold. "How many have they wiped?" The Talon looked to the stars outside the window. "Thousands. We were just next." Kyle walked out of the medbay and stood in the war room. The officers waited, silent. Outside the main viewport, pieces of alien cities still floated. "We're not next," he said. "We're a mistake they're about to regret." Orders were relayed. Firefall Fleet prepared to trace the gravitational anomalies, follow the silence back to their source. Earth didn't know the full truth yet, but Kyle had already made the decision for them. They came to help. Now they were going to hunt. The galaxy might have forgotten what humans were capable of, but they were about to remember. The silence didn't speak. They didn't broadcast demands, didn't warn before they struck, and didn't mourn what they destroyed. They simply appeared, like the end of a sentence. And when they did, entire civilizations vanished behind them. Their ships didn't shimmer with tech. They didn't glitter with power. They looked like shadows made solid, long, jagged things that moved without propulsion and hummed without sound. And now, for the first time, they were being followed. Firefall Fleet trailed the gravitational anomalies like bloodhounds. Argent's sensors were pushed past maximum limits, mapping dark matter warps and slipspace scars like forensic analysts at a murder scene. Every jump took them deeper into uncharted systems, where even old probe satellites had burned out centuries ago. What they found in the next system stopped the fleet cold. A planet, not just dead, but erased. No orbit, no moons, no debris. Just a hollow crater where a world used to be. Gravity still lingered, faint and confused, like a ghost who didn't know it had died. Kyle stared at it through the screen, a tightness in his chest growing by the second. They didn't destroy the planet, he murmured. They unmade it. Argent responded calmly. Quantum analysis confirms. This system underwent forced matter destabilization. Target was broken down to base elements and dispersed. Kyle's voice lowered. Why? What's the point? They want control, came a voice from behind. It was the Talon survivor, now housed in a sterile habitat chamber aboard the Vengeance. He had started to walk again, slowly, shimmering brighter by the day. They believe the galaxy is a garden, and every few millennia the weeds must be pulled. Kyle looked at him through the reinforced glass. We're not weeds. The Talon tilted his head, glowing veins pulsing like embers. They don't see you yet. They don't know you're coming. Kyle turned back to the viewport. Then let's introduce ourselves. The silence struck the first human scout ship 3 jumps later. The Halberd, a stealth frigate designed for deep recon, vanished mid-transmission. 1 second it was pinging back scans. The next, flatline. No debris, no distress, just gone. Kyle didn't wait. The next jump, he sent in the Gravemind, a heavy destroyer loaded with layered shields, quantum armor, and a full escort of interceptor drones. What they saw then wasn't a ship. It was a void. The Silence didn't travel in fleets. They were fleets. A single construct, tens of kilometers long, unfolded from nothing, blocking out stars like a curtain being drawn across the sky. It had no visible weapons, no exhaust ports, no command bridge. It moved like a leviathan, slowly, inevitably, eating light itself. It reached toward the Gravemind without moving. Gravity wells erupted around it. The Gravemind's hull screamed against the pull. Fire everything, Kyle ordered. Missiles, beams, kinetic rods, EMP charges, Earth's finest weapons hurled toward the construct at impossible speeds. They hit and disappeared. No impact, no explosion. Just silence. Kale stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the impossible. It's absorbing them. Argent's voice cut in. Correction, it's unwriting them. Weapon data does not persist. They are erased from memory and physical record. Kyle's jaw clenched. Then we write new data. And for the first time in Earth's recorded military history, he authorized Protocol Burnstorm, a tactic forbidden in planetary theaters. Firefall Fleet began charging singularity torpedoes, weapons that risked collapsing space around their own ships. Suicide-grade ordnance. If they want to erase us, Kale said, turning to his officers, they'll have to remember every goddamn second of it. The Silence construct responded. Its surface shifted. Something opened. Kyle didn't wait for an invitation. The singularity torpedoes fired like dying suns. 3 of them, launched in sequence from the Vengeance, each wrapped in layers of plasma shielding and inertial dampeners. Their paths warped space as they moved, distorting gravity fields, snapping metal support struts on nearby cruisers, and cracking one unlucky escort ship in half from proximity shock waves. The Silence construct didn't react. It didn't flee. It didn't defend. It just watched. The torpedoes reached it within seconds, touching its impossible surface and, finally, detonating. Singularities burst open, 3 miniature black holes shrieking into existence, ripping and folding the construct's hull in chaotic spirals of void and matter. Light bent. Sound vanished. Even the stars flickered out in the viewing deck as the gravitational chaos engulfed the target. And then, the universe snapped back. The construct wasn't gone, not completely. It was wounded. The front third of its massive frame had been torn apart, jagged metal bones and swirling darkness where the Silence's skin had once been smooth and whole. Something inside glowed now, something red, something alive. Kale didn't speak. His crew didn't breathe. They watched the first blood spill from a species that claimed to be gods. Then came the scream. It wasn't heard through speakers. It bypassed every known comm system, every shielded frequency, every firewall. It screamed directly into their heads. Thousands of voices, male, female, mechanical, alien, human. Some screaming in pain, others in fury, some in languages long extinct. And some voices were their own. Private Kira Ewan dropped to her knees in the weapons bay, clutching her ears. "It's me! It's using my voice!" Lieutenant Hoxley began clawing at his throat, as if something were trying to force its way out. A medic on Deck 9 put a gun to his own head before anyone could stop him. Argent, the ship's AI, stuttered for the first time in its operational history. Cognitive. Breach. Neural attack. Error. Containment breach. Containment breach. Kyle slammed his fist into the override panel. "Deploy PSI filters. I want every damn soldier hooked to suppressors now. Lock the AI core. Scramble the brain if you have to." His voice brought order, but only barely. Dozens were already lost to madness, some frozen in place, others convulsing. The construct, even half destroyed, was talking back. And it wasn't words, it was memory, emotion, identity. Kyle finally understood. It didn't erase by destroying. It erased by becoming you. It swallowed civilizations whole by pulling them inside and replacing them. One of the officers, pale and shaking, turned to him. "Sir, we didn't kill it. We just woke it up." On the lower decks, the Talon survivor, the one who had first spoken to Kale, watched silently through the blast window. His crystalline skin shimmered violently now, shifting from calm blue to a dangerous violet. "The wound is deep," he whispered to himself, "but not mortal." He touched the glass, his voice barely above a breath. "Now they see you. Now they remember." And then he turned and began to chant, not in human language, not in Talon, but something older, something forbidden. His body began to fracture again, light pouring out from his chest like liquid stars. Elsewhere in the fleet, the remaining ships regrouped around the Vengeance. They weren't retreating. Kyle stood firm, a silhouette against the chaos of dying stars and fractured reality. "We're not backing down," he said. "They want us gone? They're gonna have to tear it from our fists." Earth heard the scream too. Not in full, not like the soldiers who were bleeding from their ears aboard Vengeance, but enough. Every satellite, every quantum channel, every long-range relay lit up with static and echoes. Millions of people across Earth, Mars, and Luna dropped what they were doing and turned to the sky, not because they heard something, but because they felt it. A collective nausea, a shiver across the soul. And in the lower levels of Central Command, inside a bunker deeper than most cities, the Directorate's High Council gathered. They had the footage, the silence, the static. They had AI reports describing an intelligence attack unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. And they had Coyle's last transmission. "This isn't just extermination. It's assimilation. They're not wiping the galaxy clean. They're rewriting it, pulling the code of every species into themselves and leaving nothing behind. We've struck a nerve, and now they're turning." The council was divided. Some screamed for retreat. "Recall the fleet. Fortify Earth. Let the stars burn. We'll survive here like we always have." Others, hardliners, wanted escalation. Total war. Use Earth's most forbidden weapons, god bombs, singularity mines, planet killers. But one voice cut through it all. Her name was Era Voss, the last survivor of the Antarctic archive collapse, and now chief of interstellar defense. She stood, hands behind her back, staring at a hologram of the silence construct slowly regenerating despite the damage done by Kyle's fleet. Her voice was quiet. "If we fall back, We die slower. That's all. Her gaze swept the room. You don't get it. They don't want our land, our water, our planets. They want our existence, our idea. If we let them rewrite us, they'll wear our skin across the stars like a trophy. She turned and pointed at the screen. Kyle woke something ancient, and now it's awake. So we do what humans always do when something ancient crawls out of the dark. She hit the command pad. We send more fire. Back on the front line, Firefall Fleet was barely holding together. The wounded Silence construct had vanished into a fold space rift, and Kyle was certain it wasn't fleeing. It was regrouping. Preparing. The crew had stabilized most of their neural breaches thanks to emergency SI blockers, but the damage was done. Some soldiers wouldn't come back. Others weren't quite human anymore. The Talon survivor, now going by the name Valak, had begun glowing steadily, his form nearly opaque from internal light. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't slept. He had grown. Kyle confronted him in the secured chamber. You've changed. Valak looked up. I was dormant, until you came. You knew what they were. I remembered what they are. I am not the first Talon. I carry the memories of 10,000 cycles. I was meant to be a living record, hidden in crystal until someone, you, broke the seal. Kyle folded his arms. Why us? Valak took a step forward. Because only humans are violent enough to fight gods, and petty enough to keep going after the first punch. The Admiral didn't smile, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. That's supposed to be a compliment? Valak tilted his head. It's a prophecy. Kyle stepped back into the bridge just in time to see a new energy spike. Slipspace tear. Massive. Bigger than anything they'd recorded. The Silence were coming back. But this time, they weren't alone. 7 new constructs emerged from the fold, surrounding the system like sentinels, each one different in size and shape. Some looked like shards of glass, others like living mountains of black stone, all of them pulsing with the same sickly red glow deep within their cores. Kyle stood at the center of the chaos, steady as ever. His voice came out low, calm. Tell Earth we've got company. Then he turned to his officers. Battle stations. No more probes. No more scans. We go loud. The bridge darkened as war protocols snapped into place, and above them, the sky went dark. The sky above the Talon system fractured like glass under pressure. 7 Silence constructs drifted in formation, each one casting shadows longer than entire cities. They didn't glow. They devoured light. Their surfaces rippled with patterns that weren't meant to be seen by the human eye, fractal-like and shifting. Looking at them too long made crew members nauseous or weep uncontrollably. Kyle didn't look away. Not once. Fleet formation Delta 7, he ordered. Bring the Vengeance to point. Have the Thorn and Hammerfall flank left. I want missile clouds and decoys up immediately. Alarms screamed as the fleet moved into position. Ships adjusted thruster vectors, massive hangar bays opened, and swarms of unmanned interceptors spilled out like locusts, programmed to die screaming if it bought the fleet seconds of time. Argent, now stabilized after the mental attack, buzzed in calmly. Incoming energy swell. Construct 5 is spooling a gravitational singularity at 6% the size of Jupiter. Impact projection. Catastrophic. Kyle raised his chin slightly. Tell the Hammerfall to intercept with a borehead nuke. But sir, the communications officer warned, they won't make it back from that kind of proximity. They know, Kyle said coldly, and they'll do it anyway. The Hammerfall, a heavy dreadnought built for orbital sieges, turned toward the glowing belly of Construct 5. Its hull groaned under strain as it accelerated, pushing its ancient engines to their limits. The Boarhead nuke was a last resort weapon, technically outlawed under pre-galactic treaty law, but Earth didn't care much about laws written by cowards and committees anymore. The last message from Captain Voss of the Hammerfall played across every fleet screen. For Earth, for fire, for something that remembers pain. Then silence. A second later, the Hammerfall detonated. Light consumed the view, and when it cleared, Construct 5 was no longer whole. A third of its mass had been atomized, its symmetrical perfection scarred, leaking red light like blood through stone. Cheers erupted across the fleet, but only for a moment. Because that was when the construct spoke. Not with voices, not with screams, but with shapes. The space between the constructs twisted, like fingers closing into a fist, and reality bent inward. 3 smaller human destroyers vanished. Not destroyed, not hit, just erased from the universe, their mass and memory torn out of time like they'd never been born. Kyle didn't blink. Hold formation. Sir, I said hold. The silence on the bridge was immediate, shaken but obedient. Then a new contact appeared on Argent's radar. No. Dozens. Slipspace rips, not enemy, reinforcements. The Earth Directorate had arrived. 7 more human warships blinked into existence at the edge of the system. Not old, clunky patrol vessels. These were titans, each one a floating fortress, bristling with anti-grav cannons, shield-laced hulls, and AI cores designed to adapt mid-battle. They moved like sharks entering bloody water. Kyle's comm lit up. This is Archwarden Era Voss aboard the Stormwake. Admiral Morrow, we heard your scream. Now hear ours. Kyle cracked a smile. Welcome to hell. The battlefield exploded. Lasers lanced through void. Singularity charges lit up like dying stars. The constructs countered, bending space in twisted arcs to redirect attacks. Human ships split into rotating orbits, surrounding the enemy with Predator's precision. For every ship that died, 2 more carved their names into alien hulls. And still, the silence pressed forward. Construct 4 opened mid-battle, revealing a chasm inside, a cathedral of sorts, filled with bone-like structures and pulsating red roots. From within, smaller drones poured out, like locusts fused with machines, screeching across the void toward human ships. Kyle watched the swarm. That's their core. Valek, standing behind the viewport in his containment cell, whispered. Yes, that's their mind. Kyle looked to Argent. Then that's where we go next. Sir? We breach it, board it, rip it apart from the inside. Admiral, that's a suicide run. Kyle's voice was iron. Only if we fail. Kyle Morrow had never seen a heart this big before. Not in any beast, not in any man, not in any machine. But as the vengeance tore through the fractured remains of Construct 4's outer shell, weaving between bone-like pylons and twisted matter bridges, he saw it, pulsing, slow and aware. A gigantic red sphere, embedded inside a lattice of black sinew and gleaming mineral, hanging in the hollow chest of the construct like an organ made to rewrite creation itself. The moment the breach was open, Kale didn't hesitate. He was already in his armor, helmet sealed, gravity boots magnetized to the hull. Around him, his strike team, 12 of the best fireborn Marines Earth had left, stood ready, wordless. They weren't fresh recruits. These were survivors of the lunar insurrections, the Martian siege, and the Red Rings of Titan. People who'd already died once and come back angrier. The shuttle dropped like a meteor. They pierced through a membrane that screamed as they entered, as if the construct felt them breach its insides. It wasn't just technology. It was partially alive. Inside, everything was wrong. Angles bent where they shouldn't. Gravity pulsed in short, painful waves. The walls shifted in color and texture, sometimes metal, sometimes organic. In one hallway, Kyle thought he saw a child's drawing scratched into the flesh of the wall, a spiral and a sun. But when he looked again, it was gone. Valek's voice came through on a secure line. He had refused to stay behind, and Kyle, against all protocols, had brought him aboard. "This is no ship," Valek said through the channel. "This is a womb. They grow themselves inside these." Kyle adjusted his rifle. "Then we abort it." They moved quickly through the corridor, weapons hot, senses alert. But no drones attacked them, no resistance. Only the sound of the structure around them breathing, like a slow lung pulling in poison, until they reached the core. The heart. It floated above a pit of pulsing light, suspended by webbed tendrils reaching in from all directions. Beneath it, Kyle could see a vortex, a singularity trying to form but held in pause, like the construct had been waiting for something. "This," Valek whispered, "is where they store what they consume. Memory, identity, whole civilizations trapped, shredded, rebuilt." Kyle stepped forward. "Can we destroy it?" Valek placed a hand on the floor, his body lit up fully now, brighter than ever before, cracks running deep through his arms, his core exposed like a diamond burning inside him. "I can, but it will kill me." Kyle didn't respond right away. Valek turned, calm. "You've seen what they do. I am the last of my kind. Let me end them." The Marines spread out, securing the chamber, setting up fusion charges as backup. Kyle walked closer to the heart. It throbbed in his presence, and something about its beat felt familiar. Too familiar. Then it spoke. Kael. Not through speakers, not through radios. It spoke in his voice. Everyone froze. "You don't have to fight. You already belong. You've always belonged." Kyle growled, clenching his jaw. "I'm not yours. But your pain is. Your rage. Your loss. That's how we found you. That's how you called us." And then it shifted. Images flickered across the surface of the heart. His daughter's face, laughing, then screaming as smoke filled her lungs in New Mumbai. His son, clutching a blood-soaked uniform on the moon before disappearing into flames. Valek stepped forward. "It's reading your mind, pulling your grief into its archive." Kyle didn't move, didn't blink. "I'm still standing." The heart pulsed. "You could be with them. We have them here, their voices, their last thoughts. Join us, and you can live with them forever." Kyle raised his rifle. "And if I say no?" The surface of the heart twisted into a face, his own face, eyes hollow, mouth open in an eternal scream. "Then you become nothing, a forgotten species, just another echo in our endless hymn." Kyle fired. The explosive rounds ripped into the core's surface, sending cracks through its glowing skin. The heart howled, shaking the chamber violently. Valek stepped forward, kneeling at the edge of the pit. His body started to melt, bits of his crystalline form lifting into the air like stardust. "This is what we were made for," he said. "To pass on, to end the cycle." He looked back at Kyle one last time. "Thank you for answering." And then Valek leapt. He fell into the pit beneath the core, and the instant he touched the singularity, light detonated. A blinding pulse erupted through the construct. Not just light, data, all of it. The consumed histories, the stolen memories, the shredded thoughts of hundreds of civilizations, screamed outward in a tsunami of release. Kyle and his team were thrown against the walls. The construct's floor rippled, broke apart, and fell into the pit as if the entire belly of the beast had been punched through by God. Above, in space, the other 6 constructs staggered. One of them began to fracture. Another spun out of control. Their synchronized formation broke for the first time. On the Vengeance, Argent's voice rang out, full of static and panic. Core disruption confirmed. Multiple silence constructs experiencing cascade failure. The network is unraveling. Kyle's comm flared. Era Voss, her voice sharp and triumphant. We see it from orbit. Whatever you did, it's working. They're breaking apart. Kyle groaned, standing amid the rubble of the imploding heart chamber. His HUD was cracked, suit leaking oxygen, but he was alive. Barely. He opened the comm. Valek did it. Get my team out. 6 hours later, Firefall Fleet stood in orbit over what remained of Construct 4. The silence weren't gone, but they were hurt, and they were quiet. For the first time in recorded history, they retreated. The remaining constructs folded space and vanished into the void, trailing streaks of red light, fractured and pulsing weakly. Whatever they had been building, whatever they had planned, it was undone. Not by superior tech, not by divine intervention, but by humans answering a call that wasn't even meant for them. Kyle stood on the bridge, armor scorched, face stitched, eyes distant. He watched the Talon homeworld below. There was movement now, more survivors than expected. The race wasn't gone, just nearly. But now they had help. They had Earth. A hologram shimmered beside him, Valek's final image, recorded before the jump. His voice echoed through the room. We were always meant to die if it meant that others would live. Kyle didn't speak. Instead, he turned to the comms officer. Open a wide-band message. Every channel, every frequency, the officer blinked. Sir, even to them? Kyle nodded. They sent a message once, he said. Now we're sending one back. He cleared his throat and stepped toward the console. This is Admiral Cale Morrow of the Earth Directorate. His voice was calm, cold. To any species out there listening, if you're alive, we'll come for you. If you're in danger, we'll fight for you. He leaned in closer. And if you're the kind that feeds on the weak, know this. He tapped the console once. When you call Earth, we answer with fire.